The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. WFDF Farmington Hills, Detroit. 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
This is why you work so hard to pay the mortgage. Because home is more than four walls and a roof. It's that porch swing on a summer night. It's pajamas with feet and everybody over for Sunday dinner. And that old stuffed chair in the living room you just can't get rid of. This is why you work a second job. This is why you learn to fix things yourself, so you could save on repairs. Because home is your place, your memories, your family sleeping in their own beds at night. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. And now even more options are available. Call 888-995-HOPE today. That's 888-995-HOPE. Or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov.
Good night, Mama.
This is why. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
You're struggling with your mortgage. You think about it. You don't do anything but think about it.
What are we going to do if we lose the house? Where are we going to go?
At work.
I can't let anybody find out. I'm so embarrassed.
At dinner.
How can I tell the kids? It's gonna wreck their lives.
And at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get through this. What's gonna happen to us?
It's time to stop thinking. It's time to start dialing. Call 1-888-995-HOPE for a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options.
I'm all alone.
No, you're not. We've helped over 1 million homeowners, and we want to help you. And now there are more ways to help. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online. For like a year, she couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
And good morning. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation, here on this, I have to say, snowy Sunday morning. Those of you out there, I have to brag. Looks like Wayne County's getting those roads done pretty quick. I'm not sure once you hit 8 Mile, but either way, it's snowy. Make sure that you're careful in your driving out here this morning. This morning, I'm joined by Police Commissioner Willie Burton. Willie, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Bob. How you doing?
Good. Scotty Boman. Scotty's out letting in another one of the guests. We have a lot of people lined up for you here this morning. First hour, we're going to be delving into human trafficking, which is becoming more and more a problem. And in fact, with the auto show, that is one of the spike in the time of year that there's a lot of human trafficking. From what I understand from the Detroit police and from some of the federal agencies that talk about it. We've had, again, an eventful news week with Mr. Stone being arrested and charged by federal authorities. Again, the Trump administration is claiming that there's still no collusion concerning Russia and the rest of them. Also, at this point, we understand that there's the shutdown has been averted for 3 weeks for whatever good that does. Hopefully, the good part of it is that the employees that should be paid are paid. But other than that, I'm not sure what else they've resolved in doing that. The president has threatened that he's going to do a some type of emergency action under his federal authority. We're not sure what that is. So at this point, we'll see in 3 weeks. 3 weeks go by. He did tweet 3 weeks goes by quickly, and he's right about that. We could be right back where it was. At least, though, they are going to pay the employees that deserve to be paid. If you're going to work, and nobody ever thought that the federal government would demand that its employees work, and at the same time they weren't going to get paid. It becomes indentured servitude pretty soon from what they're doing. But meanwhile, we've been joined now in the studio by Scotty Boman. Scotty, welcome.
Hello.
And Willie and Scotty, you brought our guests here. Why don't you introduce them this morning and talk about some of the issues concerning human trafficking?
You know, in the studio we have with us today is Tom Choske. He's no stranger in the community. He's a community activist. And today we're going to talk about human trafficking. Human trafficking is just so real. But also, we're going to talk about awareness and what you can do in your community to help put an end and a stop to human trafficking. Welcome.
Okay. A lot of people may not know what that actually is, so why don't we start off by having some of the background of it explained so people understand where it's coming from, and people many times do not realize how prevalent it is in the United States. They think of it more as a third world country type of thing.
Oh, yeah, most assuredly, and people think about it in Thailand and other places, but honestly, if you look at the statistics, you're talking about one of the top places in the entire planet where human trafficking goes on. Michigan's up there, ranking number 2. Our position as a border state makes us a prime target for where these traffickers, these human traffickers, go and peddle their wares. Now, human trafficking can take on many different forms. The one that a lot of people think about is victims of the sex trade, right? These would be prostitutes, for example, people who are sold and exploited for sexual purposes. But there's also labor trafficking as well, people who are being sold into slavery. Slavery did not end in the 1800s. There is still slavery that goes on today, and it even goes on in our community. And when we're talking about human trafficking, there's a lot of people who don't think about this, and that means that there's not the awareness out there in the community for us to be able to support the victims. So that's what we're trying to do, and I've been honored in my time to work with some really great people to try to help bring some awareness to this. There's an organization called Warrior Women on a Mission, and we'll see if we can maybe get the founder, Kenitha Pearson, onto the phone to tell us a little bit more about the work that she's been doing in the community to help raise awareness about this very pertinent issue.
You raise an interesting point about sometimes there's human trafficking. You always think about it in terms of women and sex trade and things like that. You're saying that human trafficking from a labor standpoint? Mm-hmm. How does that work? What do they do?
Well, there's a lot of times when people come over to the United States as immigrants, oftentimes without documentation, and as a payment for being brought here, they are forced to work for no pay in what people oftentimes hear of as sweatshops. You know, if you've heard that term, sweatshops. It's something that, again, people think about sweatshops, they think about overseas places, third world countries, but those sweatshops do exist here in the United States. I don't know if there's people out there who might own some merchandise that says Gucci on it, but is not actually made by Gucci or things like that. Oftentimes those products are made not in normal factories, but in these sweatshops by people who are not paid a wage. And they are in fact trying to work off some debt that they will never be able to work off.
Ironically, the president and one of his places, Mar-a-Lago, I can't remember, or the place that he owns in the golf course that he owns in New Jersey, has had a number of undocumented immigrants that in theory have been brought in. I don't know if they were working for free, but were working for a very low amount of money, below the amount that was necessary for a minimum wage. And they came out and they talked about it. I just saw in the paper yesterday that he is now firing them from the location that they were working, and of course he feigns no knowledge of it, what was going on in terms. But I see that he hasn't punished the management either for for what they did in hiring them and things like that. So it seems to be. I mean, it seems to go all the way up to the top if he's willing to engage in that for his own business practices. Like everything else, he seems to talk out of both sides of his mouth when he's talking about issues. Do as I say and not as I do in the way that he practices himself. So I understand that during the auto show that the human trafficking dramatically spikes up in this area. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, for any big event that you see, so the auto show here in Detroit, the Super Bowl, for example, all these different places, this is where the trafficking comes in, where there are perpetrators of these crimes. Oftentimes are called pimps, and they bring in the prostitutes. They will traffic them and move them from one place to another, bring them into the community to try to service all of the influx of tourists or visitors or things like that. So you're exactly right. You do see a large spike in the amount of victims who are brought in as human trafficking when you have these large events going on. And it's critical for us to know in the community, and especially within law enforcement, to understand that these people, these prostitutes, they're the victims here, right? They're the ones who we need to help.
Where do they get them from? I mean, where do they bring them in from? Are they from other cities or?
They could be from anywhere. They could be from anywhere, and oftentimes these are people who are under duress. They're being forced into this, and maybe they're not being forced with violence. Sometimes they are, but oftentimes these are people who are victims of drug addiction. They're victims of some form of financial distress that puts them into a place where they're vulnerable, and then these pimps, they exploit that vulnerability and move them to places where they have nothing. They have no support network. They have no friends, family, don't know where they are, and that makes them even weaker and more vulnerable.
Now, do the pimps have an organization they sort of work with or work for, or are these all independent individuals that they see an opportunity like the auto show or the Super Bowl and they move a number of their prostitutes into an area, or is it organized on a more formal setting? How do we know?
Both. There's large, there's syndicates out there, there's international syndicates out there, but then there's also just people who work as individuals, and
opportunists, basically.
Yeah, and they get some victims. There are some people they know that they can get into the trade, and that's what they do.
Okay. We have on the phone here Jerry. Jerry, you're on with the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Robert Ficano. Good morning to you, and good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Gentlemen, about the human trafficking, absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I do believe, from my opinion, the human trafficking become no less danger than a drug cartel. It is a big crime against the human. It's a slavery in the 21st century. And gentlemen, I just want to bring back memory to the former Soviet Union. There was a lot of countries on the East Bloc of the former Soviet Union, and they were controlled by what they call it Russia Red Mafia. And I do believe Russia Red Mafia is a big organization, and they control a lot of parts of the world, and send in thousands and thousands of female for prostitution all over the world. And I just want to ask you, please, gentlemen, do you think because human trafficking become a big business, big industry, I hear some rumors that those mafia people or the people who they work as an agent for them in the USA or Europe, are they getting a threat by those gangsters, like threat against the official, against the police, against, let's say, any official try to track the human trafficking. I heard there's a lot of threats against those officials. I would love your answer, and thank you for taking my call, and God bless you.
Yes, and one of the things to be aware of, Jerry, is that there are a number of gangs that perhaps operate on foreign soil, and it's like a lot of other businesses. They want to get to this market because of the wealth. By that, I mean we have one of the most successful economies, so there's more wealth or there's more economic opportunity in this area. So they spread their their illegal activities into this area. You've seen it with Japanese gangs. You've seen it now with some of the Russians. The Russian gangs became much more prevalent once the former Soviet Union fell, because that permitted them to go ahead and to fill a void, really, where the Russian intelligence units and things like that were much more active in what they are today.
Sir. You know, Mr. Robert Ficano, sorry to interrupt you, and before I hear some answer from your guest, I do believe Russia right now under Mr. Putin invade the world not by weapon or by missiles or by bases, it's by human trafficking, by prostitution. I don't know if I'm exaggerated or not, but I believe that's what Russia under President Putin is doing. Invading
they're most known for obviously their IT and what they've been doing in terms of the computers and things like that, trying to influence the elections and what they've done and things like that.
What interests me here is we got this foreign component, and I keep hearing about it as far as transferring people across borders, taking them where they're not familiar. I think often perhaps holding their credentials ransom. I'm wondering how much of this is related to the U.S. immigration policy, where we have, made it so that people wanting to enter the country legally to work, for instance, are smuggled in by these coyotes and all that, and how much there's then a connection between literal, in the classic sense, indentured servitude and what we got going on now.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Sheriff, may I interrupt you? You know what? You hit on the right spot when you say immigration. Yes, sir. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, I heard there was some big lawyers, immigration lawyers involved in this human trafficking, bringing thousands of women from overseas. And those, some of them, I won't say all of them, there's a lot of decent lawyers, clean lawyers, but some of the immigration lawyers, they were involved in this human trafficking and making money and taking advantage of those female for prostitution and slavery. So, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any particular immigration attorneys that were involved in it. Unfortunately, if the money is there in terms of a lot of wealth, unfortunately, you have people from a lot of professions probably willing to take some chances where the greed drives what they're doing, which is unfortunate.
So excuse me, Mr. Robert Ficano, to your guest, what is the solution to fight the human trafficking? What the steps you advise the official to do it? And thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
And God bless you.
Thanks, Jerry. Go ahead.
Well, one thing that we've really got to do is we've got to bring that wider awareness out in the community. When we're talking about it, there's not one silver bullet solution, but this is something where we all have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of how to understand how to interact with someone. If we meet somebody who's a victim of this, how can we be supportive? And then how can we help law enforcement and work with our elected officials to ensure that law enforcement has the resources and training to really work in this? It becomes
to be in a pretty big border fight right now.
Oh, yeah.
What you're going to do to give resources, yeah.
Well, and there's other things, too. Like there's a piece of legislation called the Violence Against Women Act, and it had in it provisions that would enable victims of trafficking to receive certain aid and be treated a certain way under the law. But Congress has always held that up. They never renew it, or they renew it only for a certain amount of time. And this causes people who might be swept up with anti-prostitution laws to become even further victims, not just victims of the traffickers, but victims of the legal system.
Okay. We have to go to break. So all our callers, Dion, Kanitha, Fidea. Just hold on. We'll get to you right after the break.
So you've decided to go to college. That's cool. So pop quiz. Which is a better way to earn your degree? Commute to college and fill your gas tank, get stuck in traffic, drive in bad weather, try to find a parking space, walk a half mile to class, or learn online at Independence University. In the park on a bench, on the beach on a towel, or on your couch with your kid. Your campus is wherever you want it to be. You don't go to college. College goes to you. That's independence. That's Independence University. You schedule classes around your schedule, and all your supplies, including a brand new laptop and tablet, are included with tuition. At Independence U, you'll learn from professional instructors with real work experience. You'll get personal support in school and employment assistance when you graduate. Get your degree, but keep your life. That's independence. That's Independence University. So if you're really smart, you'd call now.
Call 1-800-556-7791.
Independence U, for an independent you.
Call 1-800-556-7791.
Listen up, America. Are you or a loved one suffering with an addiction to alcohol, opiates, prescription painkillers, or other drugs? There is hope. Medication-assisted treatment is proven most effective for opiate addiction recovery. Utilizing medications such as methadone, Suboxone, and Subutex, combined with inpatient treatment, you can achieve lasting recovery. Most insurance is accepted, so call us now.
Please call 800-625-5860.
So you've decided to go to college. That's cool. So pop quiz. Which is a better way to earn your degree? Commute to college and fill your gas tank, get stuck in traffic, drive in bad weather, try to find a parking space, walk a half mile to class, or learn online at Independence University. You don't go to college. College goes to you. That's independence. That's Independence University. And all your supplies, including a brand new laptop and tablet, are included with tuition. Independence U, for an independent you.
Call 1-800-556-7791.
Do you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS? If so, you may qualify for the IRS's Fresh Start program. The Fresh Start program is one of the biggest tax breaks the IRS has offered. Call Tax Group Center at 800-685-6150 to see if you qualify for the IRS's Fresh Start program. Their team of tax experts and attorneys will get you the best tax settlement possible. Call 800-685-6150 now to learn if you qualify for the IRS's Fresh Start program. Call Tax Group Center at 800-685-6150. 800-685-6150.
Are you drowning in debt? Struggling just to make minimum payments? It's not your fault. Serious debt can happen to anyone, but there is hope. Our debt-free program has helped thousands of good people, just like you, eliminate their credit card debt. Call us today, and we will dramatically reduce your credit card debt down to just a fraction of what you owe. The call is free. The consultation is free. Take control of your credit debt. Take control of your life again. Call now to see how our debt-free program can work for you.
Call 800-872-5230.
If you or a loved one underwent hernia surgery between 2010 and 2016 and then suffered serious complications, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Complications associated with FISOMesh include chronic pain, infection, adhesions, mesh migration, reopening of the hernia, and other serious injuries. Call right now.
Call 1-800-799-2091. Again, that's 1-800-799-2091.
Attention! In July 2018, Bayer announced that it will be halting its sales of Assure. The Assure birth control may break or migrate after insertion, puncturing the fallopian tube, resulting in corrective surgery to remove the device. Thousands of women have reported debilitating health problems to the FDA. In April 2018, the FDA restricted sales of Assure to protect women and required that patients receive risk information.
Please call 800-425-9539.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online. For like a year, she couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
When I grow up,
I want to be a bench on a forest trail. I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny porch. I want to be a skyscraper. I want to be
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
And good morning. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation. My name's Robert Ficano. We have several guests here, and we have several callers, so we're going to try to get to them pretty quickly. Before we get to a person that has been on the front line of this, Kanitha, I'd like Dion. Dion, you've been holding on for a while. What's your question?
Good morning. This is kind of to your guest. I have a question. It's kind of a two-part question, but I'm looking at the statistics of human trafficking being on the rise in Detroit as well as Michigan, young African-American girls being missing. I'm constantly seeing notices about children coming up missing. And the other thing I've noticed in the last 3 to 5 years here in Detroit and southeastern Michigan is that vehicles have now been allowed to do what used to be called a limo tent, where you cannot see in any of the vehicles. Now, this may sound like a stretch, but do you think there's any connection in the rise of all of those numbers as far as children missing, human trafficking, and vehicles that you can't see in to see what's going in, to see who's driving, to see if the kid that's missing is in that vehicle, to see what anything that's going on? I mean, like I said, it may be a stretch to some, but the rise of the cars having completely tinted out windows in the last 3 to 5 years is a reality. I don't know if a law changed recently or whatever, but if you've been driving around the city like I do every day, you see vehicles that you cannot see in, and some vehicles, and I know this probably has to have had a doctor's permission, but some vehicles have a front windshield tint. Their front windshield is tinted also.
You know, oddly, Dion, you bring that up. The other day, I was walking through a parking lot. I'll say it was at Target's, and I noticed it was a van completely. It didn't have even tinted windows. It was completely, covered with metal. It didn't have any windows whatsoever except for the front. And on the back of it, the door, it had the traditional locks that you could open the doors with, but then it had a padlock on the van itself. And I'm thinking, that is really odd looking, or extreme in terms of just a regular van having those type of characteristics that was on it. I mean, I just wasn't sure what it was, obviously, and nobody was in it at the time that I could tell. So I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, one thing that we got to look at is the root cause of it, right? And the root cause of it is that there are people out there, a lot of young women, like you mentioned, but also, too, some older women. And then we can't even ignore that this happens to our men and our boys as well, that they're also victims of here. And it's things like drug abuse, right? The increase in drug abuse that makes people victims. It's the increase in economic hardship, right? As people have been losing their jobs, and it's been harder for people to get by as prices have been rising. There are people who get in these situations, they don't know what to do, and the only way out for them is to sell the one thing that they've got, which is their bodies. So as we see this increase in economic inequality and a lack of opportunity for people, we see more victims come in. And that's what we really got to work on trying to fix.
Okay. Thanks for calling in. Have a great Sunday there, Deanne. We appreciate it. Okay, with us now, Kanitha, who I understand is an expert and has been active in the area of human trafficking and the results that we've seen in terms of a lot of unfortunate situations, especially with young women and young boys as well. Kanitha, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Go ahead. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization, what you do, and your background here?
Okay. So I'm the CEO and founder of Warrior Woman on a Mission. We bring the awareness about human trafficking. So I've been in business for a year. We're coming up to 2 years on Valentine's Day. So I just got done doing 2 events that actually was talking about where I brought the awareness about human trafficking. I also talked to some people in legislative in Michigan and in Congress this past week that was talking about human trafficking and what laws are being enforced and what they are being passed. That's what I do. I've been in this work for like 4 years because I volunteered at Vista Maria where I talked to victims of human trafficking, and they would tell me their stories. So every time I would go, it would be the parents were sell them out, had sold them out, or they ran away, and they ran to a pimp and got sold into sex trafficking. So it was constantly every time I would go over here these cases. No.
So is there a pattern that you see here? Does it, because Detroit's a border city, or what do you think some of the characteristics or causes of why you see so much of it here in this area?
Well, one of the things the target market is for Michigan is that we are a border state. That's number one. Number two, these traffickers target people who are like foster care kids, people who are girls who runaways. They target people who really need them, who are in poverty, who are looking for drugs or even looking for food and a place to stay. So people who are just kind of thrown away, this is their target market, and definitely for minors, kids who are depressed, who are in the foster care system.
So how do they find them? How do they roam the streets, or how do they find these type of people that are in those situations?
Well, one thing they sell them on false streets, I'll give you one for the teenagers. They use another teenager that's already in trafficking to lure another teenager. So what they do is, let's say it's a teenager in school that is being trafficked, and they see another teenager, they be friends, that is, from a strict home, strict religious home, or, is depressed, don't have no friends. They start hanging with them, and then they take them to where they are, and they sell them into sex trafficking. So they allure them. That's one way they use people like that. They also sometimes even, senior citizens have been involved in this, where it was a case. Yes, there was a case last year in Sterling Heights, a Target, and this lady had, she was an older lady, she was at Target, and she told this girl to help her put some groceries in the car. She said, I need some help to put some groceries in. So the girl goes over there, she puts them in, helps her put it in, and the door opens, and this man grabs the girl, and they took off, but the police was there in an unmarked car, thank God, and they caught him. So that girl didn't, but those are ways that they got so many schemes. That's one of their schemes. There's also the online,
Well, obviously, like in that case, they couldn't have kept her around the Detroit metro area, could they? Because she would, in theory, know how to get around a little bit. So they would take her to another urban area or a different city or something?
Like a different major city. So let's just say, like it was in Sterling Heights, they probably would have took her to Detroit and sold her to Detroit, and then sell her somewhere else. So a lot of times it's not always, just that one city. Sometimes when they say it's a major city that's having human trafficking, if they get them from other cities and sell them in a major city, or even if not in this state, but another state. So let's say Chicago, okay, let's say if they did take that girl, they would have probably sold her in Chicago, something like that.
So what has been, now you said you've met with some of our legislators and some of our people in Congress. What's been their reaction? I mean, nobody can be for this, but, it's usually it's got to be the results or the actual actions that they take that really count. I mean, there's nobody that's for human trafficking, words are cheap. So what kind of things are they actually being able to say that they're going to do about it?
Well, in Michigan and Lansing, they have the statute of limitations for charges against a human trafficker have been eliminated, and prior to this, the statute of limitation was only 6 years, so it's more years now. Also, the solicitation of a minor was 18. The increase of felony, so instead of 5 years, it's like it went up by 5 years, and then for being in prison with a $2,000 fine. There's also this one that they have where instead of blaming the victims, they have it more where the victims can actually, come, to their accusers, tell them pretty much, in court and get them. So that's what they're doing more now.
More of a shield, like what the rape victims go through, I'm presuming?
Yeah. And also, if a person who's been trafficked has been on drugs or has done any criminal stuff, they can actually have that eliminated from their record now due to the fact that they were involved in traffic, pushed into
or a victim of trafficking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that has been pushed into legislative as of now. That's what I got.
Well, we have some callers about it. Did you want to say something, Willie?
Yeah, Bob, I was looking the other day online, and it seemed like California, the state of California, New York, and Texas, are really big right now in human trafficking. And
border states.
The border states. Yeah. And what's, what's is alarming about all of this, it's like here in Detroit, Michigan, we got Canada right here,
Yeah.
And
we're paying all attention to the southern border and none to the north border.
So it's real. Human trafficking is definitely real, and every 30 seconds, somebody's becoming a victim of human trafficking. So we got to do what we can do as far as awareness in the community, to keeping women and children safe and out of the hands of, those that are perpetrating, in the human trafficking.
Yeah, I think there needs to be an important distinction made between sex workers who enter into voluntary prostitution and choose that as a income activity, and those who are coerced into this by force. I mean, just as a person who's a farmer versus a farm worker that's kept on a farm and not allowed to leave and indentured to the company store are two different things. I think we need to recognize also that a person who voluntarily takes on the sex trade that happens to be illegal is also something distinct. It seems to me that in a way it's kind of like in Prohibition, where you had the mob getting empowered by the outlawing of something. Then you have grain alcohol and poisonous things getting to people. That in a similar respect, we seem like you end up with this being kind of what dominates that trade because it is illegal and because it's been put on the black market and pushed underground.
Yeah. Fidel, you're on with the panel.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Ficano.
Good morning.
For some odd reason, this whole subject just not sitting well with me. Human trafficking, and it just seemed like to me, they changing the word, and I guess basically in the judicial system, you get caught doing human trafficking, you just get more time. Why don't they spend their time, energy, and money on helping the community enrich themselves, putting people back to work, have a place for these runaways to go, but their solution to everything is always find a different terminology to lock people up. And if this human trafficking in 30 seconds, that's a real big number to say somebody a victim. You guys know who got the power and the money to put all this type of stuff together. Y'all don't go after them. I understand it, but it's just not sitting too well with me. And is it human trafficking if the woman still does the act but doesn't have anybody kidnap her or take her away unwillingly?
Well, that's distinction. I mean, if they're there of their own volition and engaging in prostitution, that's a crime still, but it's a different type of crime versus someone that against their will is taken and intimidated into, engaging in prostitution. It's a big difference. And part of the problem with it, Fidel, is that many of it is international rings. It's not just some mob boss in the United States or Detroit or New York. These are sophisticated, actually, international rings that are doing this and capturing young girls. If you're talking about prostitution from all over the world, they induce them. They're in countries that they feel there's no hope. Many times they just telling them that they'll pay their way to the United States. They're going to help them, and then when they're here, they're indentured servants. So they have no way. First of all, they're here illegally, so they're scared to death. And then second of all, they don't have any way to really climb out of the hole at that point.
Well, Mr. Ficano, we got to look here in the state of Michigan. Who is getting arrested for that? And what you just said, international, you got to pick her up, take her to a whole other country. That sounds like a well-organized crime, and it just don't fit the crime that goes on in Detroit. So I'm not buying it, Mr. Ficano, and that's just my opinion.
Here in the city of Detroit, Detroit Police Department is seeing a slight spike in its number as far as its reports when it comes to missing girls or missing children. And, just talking about the auto show, Bob mentioned a little earlier, here in Metro Detroit, there was approximately 30, 40, 30, 40,
Yeah, the FBI said that there was about 30 to 40 extra children that were brought in to do trafficking here just because of the auto show. We know that it dramatically spiked during the Super Bowl. That a lot of organizations, unfortunately, brought in, prostitutes. That when you're talking about the Super Bowl, there's probably a lot of wealth that is slushing around that people can afford to do these things. That's part of that.
So I want to just say, I'm happy that Chief Craig is on top of this whole human trafficking right here in the city of Detroit and trying to do what he can to help, eliminate and put a fight to human trafficking. And he just started adding 15 officers to a program, to help fight human trafficking or combat human trafficking here in the city of Detroit.
Well, they just charged 3 individuals with human trafficking of a 14-year-old in Detroit. They just announced those charges. So, I mean, there's a much more of an awareness that is starting to arise from that, and one that perhaps we should take more seriously because, like everything else, if it doesn't affect your family, many times people don't, they sort of ignore it or don't think that it's that big of an issue. And there's a lot of people that, unfortunately, young girls are forced in a situation. Okay, we have a lot of callers. Tracy, you're on with the panel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Taking my call. My question is about social media and human trafficking. What I would like to see is more educational videos, maybe in the schools, showing kids what that looks like, because it looks very different when you're recruited online. The young lady had spoke about sometimes they use people their age to recruit them, but I know I've read some papers where they talk about the young people being recruited online through various gaming websites, through various websites in general. They listed all of them, basically. And so if parents are sitting in a car, with their child who's continuously on the phone, which I see all the time, not talking to their child is talking to a stranger who is establishing that relationship with them that will eventually get them to do something like meet them at a McDonald's or meet them somewhere around the Super Bowl in Atlanta. That plants the seed right there. So what are we doing? You talked about the police officers, but what are we doing in regards to combating social media and human trafficking? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Have a good Sunday. Kanitha, any ideas on that?
Okay, so with social media, the key thing is to pretty much to be preventive is people need to stop geotagging. That's one of the big things, is stop with, take location off with your kids, or, pretty much tell them, like, not to be tagging where they're at, because that is a big problem where somebody can be right outside school and they take them. That's a big, parents take pictures of their kids when they first day of school, and then they geotag it, and which sets off where their kid is at all time, at that time frame, pretty much. And they can get them. Somebody can come pick them up, and next thing they're thrown into the world of child sex trafficking or child labor. So that's the first thing I would say is, number one, tell your kids to be careful online, definitely. And to, definitely tell them to stop tagging, where they're at. Of course, they have some apps on there. I did hear about an app that they can actually, I think it was a 360 app or something that I heard about, where it's an app that the parent knows, and it's on your child's phone. You can download on your phone, their phone, and then they'll know where you'll know where they're at, but nobody else is going to know where they're at. So,
I think there's a general problem with young people having smartphones, period. And, I mean, if they need to call home on an emergency, well, usually if they're school, they can use a school phone. But otherwise, in between or whatever, they could have a phone that's just a plain old, call, dial-in phone. I know they're not popular. But I think safety has to take a step ahead of the kids trying to just do what's popular among their peers. Because when I was growing up, and I know I sound like an old man as soon as
yeah, you do when you're saying
and anybody does that prefaces things, but there is some old people wisdom, and as I get older, I realize sometimes, the people I thought of as the old fogies had some things to say. Physically in the parent's sight, I think a lot of parents are blind to the idea, and you mentioned, they could be doing anything while, they're on the phone and the parents aren't paying attention. Well, at some point, maybe they just, the parents need to simply not have them online unsupervised, because it's like pretty much like saying, my parents wouldn't send me say, hey, you could catch a bus and go downtown and go to the store or go to a movie or whatever when I was like 8 years old, but they'll let an 8-year-old go ahead on the internet, where it amounts to the virtual version of the same thing, where they're going out there on their own and encountering strangers in who knows what environment.
Yeah, there is definite opportunities now with social media. Facebook has opened it up. I mean, not only are they tagging themselves, but what I've had for breakfast all the way through what they're doing just about every 5 minutes of their life, many times is chronicled through Facebook and what they're posting and things like that, which, if you have a bad intent and you're following this, you suddenly have opportunity that's there. Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get the phones out of the school area now, because it's that horse has sort of left the barn, looks like, and everybody is, engaged with phones. And oddly enough, flip phones are making a comeback a little bit, so they said. But I don't know how much of that's going to take over from a regular iPhone. And I see that Scotty has a flip. He still uses flip phones. We know how old he is.
So the other day, I heard a presentation on human trafficking, and I believe you started off the presentation. Am I correct? Yeah, and you it was something that's interesting, because it was Attorney Linda Bernard and I, we were sitting there taking notes, and you was talking about about how 800,000 people are being human trafficking per year, 800,000 people, and I think you said something about 50%, are women and children. Is those numbers?
Yeah. Well, 800,000 children go missing in the United States a year. So that's like that's the whole United States. That's how many children go missing under what deals with human trafficking. Yep.
Okay. Tim, you're on with the panel.
Good morning. I felt as the prior person talking that cell phone use, unsupervised kids that have adult tools, I don't think it's a good thing. And I believe that the schools, considering we have these problems and, all these different things happening today in our society, schools are a great venue. You can have a course on ethics and respect and honesty. Your gym class can be a self-defense course and dealing with situations such as we're talking about right now. You can get people to go in and teach self-defense, and it's a great workout. You burn more calories. The kids have more fun with it, and it's a tool they can use if somebody's assaulting them or grabbing them, and it can be for guys and girls, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great thing. But I think that today parents are just not connected with their kids enough. We see it all the time. We have a fitness center, and so we see a lot what goes on, and actually right now we're having, on February 23rd, we're having a self-defense class for women, so for this very reason,
Okay. Well, self-defense, yeah, and it can be important. Unfortunately, many times with a young girl and a young man, they're not as, the element of surprise is the thing that many times overtakes them as to what's happening. I mean, it happens so quick and things like that. If they had some techniques and stuff, probably it could help them a little bit. But many times they're overwhelmed by the strength and the size of the individual trying to pick them up. But we appreciate it, though.
Robert?
Yes.
Yeah, Robert, you'd be surprised what you could do, being how big a person is that you're confronting. With just a few hand moves, it'll give you enough time to get away. Then in that class, they could be taught awareness. When you go to your car and you see a van next to your driver's side, you may want to go into your passenger side, you know what I mean? And not to have your cell phone, you know what I mean? So that's just my
and you're taught many times to walk with the keys, with one of the keys protruding from your fingers, it can be used as a weapon and things like that. And those are taught, too, with a lot of safety classes in police departments, I know.
Right.
And we used to do a sheriff.
Now,
appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, one thing, too.
Show,
Thank you.
Just wanted to talk about self-defense and how many of the victims are put into these really vulnerable situations. And even when they do defend themselves, though, because awareness is so low amongst not only the public, but especially our legislators, sometimes these victims get, again, like I had said previously, made even more of a victim by the legal system. Some might remember the case of Miss Cyntoia Brown in Tennessee. She was a victim of human trafficking, and she tried to defend herself from an aggressive John, a person who
wanted her
bought
services.
sex. Exactly. And this person brought her back to his house, and when she defended herself, she defended her life with a firearm because she feared for her safety. She ended up being convicted of a crime and sent away for decades to prison. And it wasn't until just very recently, this happened years ago, it wasn't until very recently that she actually got pardoned because, again, even though she was acting in self-defense to protect herself, because she was a prostitute, and there's such a negative connotation, such a lack of awareness that she was really the victim, the legal system treated her so poorly.
Okay. We have Commissioner Underwood who wants to join in the conversation. Commissioner? Hello? Commissioner? Commissioner Underwood? Okay. We'll get back to her on there. We have just a few seconds left, and I want to thank Kenitha for coming and talking to us about your organization and more awareness here in the Detroit area. Like I said, we see it spike up many times during special events. that come into the area. And go ahead.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
you're welcome.
We appreciate it very, very much.
Senator still on?
Pardon?
Senator, you still on?
Yeah, I'm still on.
You know, before we go into the next segment, you mentioned something about the 4 different types of people to identify. I think it's very important that you share that on the air before you get off, because women needs to hear this. One was, I think, was the Romeo.
Real quick before we go to break. Go ahead.
Okay, so the Romeo pimp showers his victims with gifts, so that's why that girl takes a while to get away from him, because he's giving her a lot of good stuff. The violent pimp uses force, so she's scared to leave because he's always beating her all the time. Now, the gang pimps are the ones that sell out one guy sells out, more than one guy sells out one girl. Of course, the business pimp is the one that sets up reservations at exclusive hotels, restaurants, strip clubs, bars, and casinos. So those are the 4 types of pimps that should be on the lookout with.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for the information this morning. Very helpful, and you have a great Sunday. We're going to go to...
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to break, and we're going to be right back right after. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation.
Hi, I'm Hunter Ellis, and this is Atomic Beam USA. Another bright idea from Bulbhead, the ultra-bright, tough-grade flashlight that features tactical technology used by U.S. Special Forces. This flashlight has a feeble 125 lux output. The Atomic Beam USA has up to 5,000 lux. That's 40 times more. We're going to drop it hundreds of feet from this helicopter. It hits the tarmac, and it's still working. That's what I call a tough flashlight. Heavy downpours, mud puddles, even extreme temperatures are no match. You could spend over $100, or the Atomic Beam USA can be yours for just $19.99 with free lifetime guarantee. Order now, you can double it and get a second Atomic Beam USA. Just pay a separate fee, and we'll even ship them to you for free. Atomic Beam USA is just $19.99. Order now.
Call 1-800-638-2619 to get your Atomic Beam USA. Call now or go to atomicbeam.com. So call 1-800-638-2619. Deluxe version available. Order now.
We all love fried food, but the problem is all that excess oil and fat can cause you to become overweight. Well, now there's the Cook Light Aero Fryer, an amazing kitchen miracle that uses air to fry instead of oil, so you can have the same delicious flavor and crispiness of deep frying using little or no oil. Get that deep fried taste and crispiness with up to 70% fewer calories. Enjoy crispy, delicious fries with little or no oil, guilt-free onion rings, cheesy and delicious mozzarella sticks. Call now and bring the Cook Light Aero Fryer into your home, including the Cook Light Aero Fryer recipe book, the unique patented dual tray, air frying mesh basket and tongs, and stainless steel extender ring. You'll get it all for 5 easy payments of $29.95. Be one of the first 500 callers and get this 13-piece knife set, a $175 value, yours free. Try Cook Light Aero Fryer for 30 days. If you don't love it, send it back, but keep the 13-piece knife set as our gift to you. Order in the next 10 minutes and we'll include free shipping. Call now or go online to air2fry.com. That's air2fry.com.
Stay up to date with current events and breaking news on our Facebook page. Search and like 910 AM Superstation on Facebook, and you'll see everything new, everything exciting, and all things Detroit. 910 AM Superstation News on Facebook Live right now. If you want to hear the voices of Detroit, look no further. The countdown is on.
Wake up!
Wake up!
Bright and early.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Since 2014, Addiction Hope and Helpline has answered calls for recovery and treatment 24/7, 365 days a year. If you're depressed, drinking, using drugs, or taking pills, call now and talk to someone who cares.
I
I had problems just getting to sleep, drinking and using pills every night.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Most insurance covers substance abuse. You can get back on track. Call now for hope and help with proven gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I have something to hold on to for strength. I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call 800-379-4799, 800-379-4799.
Hi, I'm Joan London with A Place for Mom. Over the years, we've helped thousands of families find senior care, and today's senior living communities have never been better, with amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms and swimming pools, public cafes, bars and bistros, even pet care services. And nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. These are local expert advisors that will partner with you to find the perfect place and determine the right level of care, whether that's just a helping hand or full-time memory care. Best of all, it's a free service. Call today. A Place for Mom. You know your family, we know senior living. Together, we'll make the right choice.
Call A Place for Mom right now to get our free ebook on financing senior care as well as a free referral for senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-436-2907. That's 1-800-436-2907.
We're the hottest station in town. Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation. The most powerful voices in the urban community.
3, 2, 1.
You're listening to 910 AM Superstation. You're listening to 910 AM Superstation.
The best in the city.
WFDF Farmington Hills, Detroit. 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media.
You're struggling with your mortgage. You think about it. You don't do anything but think about it.
What are we going to do if we lose the house? Where are we going to go?
At work.
I can't let anybody find out. I'm so embarrassed.
At dinner.
How can I tell the kids? It's going to wreck their lives.
And at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get through this. What's going to happen to us?
It's time to stop thinking. It's time to start dialing. Call 1-888-995-HOPE for a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options.
I'm all alone.
No, you're not. We've helped over 1 million homeowners, and we want to help you. And now there are more ways to help. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
They'll challenge your authority. They'll try to break your will. They'll push you to the edge of your sanity. Because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory, not theirs. Defend it. Who makes the payments? Who cleans it? Who drives it? You do. That's who. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch. Until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
Steven.
Who said that?
Me, down here.
What are you, a yellow booger?
I'm a banana slug, Steven.
Well, what are you doing in my room?
I'm your sense of adventure. Don't you remember me? Don't you know that we miss you?
Miss me? Who misses me?
You know, all your friends in the forest. The trees, the pond, that little fort that you made out of branches. We all miss you.
Mom took me to the forest last year.
I'm a slug, Steven. It took me a long time to get here.
Oh. I guess that makes sense.
The forest is not that far away. Have an adventure today. I'm sure your mom would take you.
You're right. I should get out. I want to have fun. play in puddles, catch frogs, and climb trees. Hey, Mom!
Yeah, hon? Stephen, what is that in your hand?
It's my sense of adventure, Mom. It's telling me we need to get out of the house and have some fun in nature today.
Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
And good morning. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation, joined by some in-studio guests. I'll let them identify themselves here. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Detroit Police Commissioner Willie Burton, District 5.
Scotty Boman, founder of DRACO and board member of the Morningside organization.
And a resident Libertarian.
And Tom Choske, just a longtime community activist.
Okay, great. Well, we have some callers that held through the break, which we appreciate. We're back with Commissioner Underwood. Commissioner?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You're on the air, Commissioner. You wanted to chime in here? Go ahead.
Well, I was, Scotty invited me to come in and talk and to tell you guys, I guess, about the Detroit Charter Commission meeting that we had the other day. It was a great meeting. And I'm very interested in the overall conversation about the human sex trafficking that you guys was talking about earlier. And I just want to say in the District 7, it's a real big problem over here with that and prostitution between the areas they work on Wyoming and Plymouth all the way to Schaefer and Plymouth. So, and that's all ages of girls. So we definitely need to tackle that in the city of Detroit. And we are also having our bylaws committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 30th at the 14th Congressional District for the residents that want to see us redraft the bylaws for the Detroit Charter Commission.
Now, I understand, did you have a meeting yesterday?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting yesterday. It was very a productive meeting. We was on the east side. It went very well. We was able to get through an agenda, and the community was pleased with the results.
Now, I have not read the article. I saw that the Detroit News headlined that there were a lot of Detroiters that were very interested. You had an enormous response of people that are paying attention to the Charter Commission. Probably getting more attention than when it was on the ballot, from what we can tell. And it was a very packed meeting that you had yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was packed, and that's going to be the norm. I think because myself and other grassroots activists that was involved, it's kind of like a little bit fresher than normal, and so the people feel more comfortable coming out because it's people that they familiar with that's on the board. So I suspect that to be normal, and actually it might even increase as time go on.
For the listeners who weren't at the meeting yesterday, and I was had the fortune of being there, could you tell them, did you end up ultimately then, did they agree that the bylaws committee then would be rewriting the bylaws and there would be a fresh vote like from scratch, or is this like an amendment to bylaws that are still in force in spite of the Roberts Rules issues that you brought up? That need to be then amended.
Yeah, and so as parliamentarian, I stressed the fact that a bylaw committee was not set up. So we rescinded the bylaws as far as the existing ones that was drafted, and redrafting a fresh new bylaws with all recommendations from all of the commissioners, and we will present it with the next community meeting, which I believe is going to be on February 12th.
Thank you. And February 12th, and what time, again, and place would that be at?
We that's on standby because the city council made a resolution where they wanted us to do it at the municipal building, but that's just not convenient for the residents because they got to pay for parking and stuff like that. So the vice chair is going to go down there Tuesday and request that we continue to have our open community meetings out in the community where we belong.
Okay, and those can be near bus routes. 'Cause I remember one person bringing up the fact that a lot of the people who travel using mass transit had access issues.
Yeah, well, actually, we was on Connors, and you could take the Gratiot bus east or west, and that goes east or west. But yeah, that will be taken into consideration. We also taking into consideration about the people who are disabled, making sure things are handicap accessible. But definitely on key places like the next meeting, hopefully if we get approved, it's going to be on the Grand River bus line. And Grand River run east and west. You can take Grand River all over the city.
So I understand just discussion with some people that your budget overall is like $212,000. Is there, where do you get the funding from? Is that directly from the city of Detroit, or how does that work? I mean, I guess to the average person, $200,000 sounds like a lot of money, but in actuality, running a commission it seems woefully underfunded.
Yeah, and that has to be appealed because there's the other commissioners, Charter Commission in 2012 had $1 million, and the people need to take in consideration that I have a 3-year term, and so we do have to hire staff, and so we definitely need to increase the budget amount, and I'm not opposed to that, so that's something that the board will have to decide. Unfortunately, I was not there when the Budget Finance Committee came up with that figure, because that's, like you said, that number is way too low for the jobs and tasks that we have in hand. And keep in mind, not only do we have to do community meetings, we also have to do subcommittee meetings, and all of that has to be open to the public. And people like myself that goes outside of that to promote the Charter Commission and neighborhood associations, a lot of PR work to get that crowd of people there at the meeting. So it's a lot of work.
Okay. So your next meeting is the 30th of January?
Yeah, the 30th of January at 5 o'clock at the 14th Congressional District building. I don't know the address, but I know it's on Livernois. And that's going to be open to the public, and the public gets to come out and see us redraft the whole entire bylaws with a recommendation from all of the commissioners.
Okay. Can you hold for a second? I think we got some questions from some callers. Rick, you're on with Commissioner Underwood and with the panel. Rick?
Hey, all I can say is Miss Underwood does one great job.
Sounds like you got a fan here.
Let me say this. One of the things, as just an average person, I want to know who are the victims of what the charter requires and allows now. I know that those people who are impacted by the storm water management should really be interested, because the charter sets that up, and there has been some question as to whether or not the charter allowed for that localized fee increase. And so I think there's a very viable group there. And the next one would be why, what's the city's reason for revision or rewriting of the charter? We need to kind of get a couple of those pointers, because it didn't come from the citizens. And so that, to me, is something key. Another part of it that I noticed is that the charter hours really doesn't have a specific, easy-to-understand handling policy for the first-party claims of citizens, which is key, because when revision, rewrites, amendments come up, you need those things, and if they're not cataloged, if they're not collected, they're not available, and that information flow is a problem for us. I just wanted to touch back real quick on your issue of human trafficking. A piece I think that is key to that is getting a universal hand sign for people being held against their will. Now, it's been some discussion around it for a couple of years. It's a lot of implications with that. But that is another tool, because it forces the captor, if you would, the holder kidnapper to suspiciously try to watch or block the hand movement of a victim. So that in turn helps you to be able to distill, if you would, define what's going on. So I just wanted to add that. Make3.com loves JoAnna. So thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks. To answer the one question, I think the Charter Commission actually went on the ballot because the old charter mandated it happen, and I think a lot of people were surprised at how quickly it came back up. Most charters to be revised usually take 16 years, 10 years minimum that come up and there's a vote on it and things like that. But at least that answers one of the questions. Commissioner, I don't know if you had any other comments on that.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. It was out of, the last commission put that in there, and they claimed that they didn't put it in there, that the Attorney General put it in, that charter will open up every fourth gubernatorial race, and so that's every 16 years. So that could be looked at. That could be also changed. As far as the drainage fee, a lot of people don't know that the Water Commission actually set the rate to actually what we pay in the water, and the drainage fee was, they said it was determined by the fact that we was not getting charged for the runoff, and they're using more of the equipment to clean the water waste. So it's really not a really clear definition. As far as the Charter Commission is concerned, we would definitely invite everybody that has been working on that issue and make sure we can try to put something in place. From my understanding, the city of Detroit has not proved their argument about this fee completely yet, and it's already being challenged by a number of business people through lawsuits. So we'll see how that
there are several. I had a couple people that contacted me that were in business and were shocked at some of the rates, and then some of the pastors that I know were shocked at some of the rates because churches are nonprofits, so they normally don't pay property taxes, but the water bill is not considered, part of the property tax until you don't pay it. Then it gets leaned on the property, and people were sort of surprised by it. Now I know they've attempted to try to deal with it, but it's not been resolved. So under the new charter, would there be an attempt to deal with some of these fees then about the water and the turnoff and things like that?
Oh, yes. It has to be something because it's unaffordable. I mean, that's what it boils down to. It's unaffordable for everybody, from business and residents. The amount of money they were asking, like we estimate that's going to put an extra 50 to 100. Some people, it's $100 extra to their bill, so it's definitely not affordable. Like I said, I'm not a water expert, a water activist, but I'm definitely going to consult with other people that have been working on this issue so we can come up with a fair agreement about the drainage fee. That's like one of the most biggest complaints, that in the Detroit Land Bank from the residents.
What's the issue with the land bank?
Oh, my God. We got serious problems with people saying that they can't buy their side lot. People who live in the area claiming that they getting outbidded by these big management companies. People said they were sold homes on a demolition list. Also, the nuisance abatement policy they enforcing, where they mandating all the residents of the city of Detroit who buy property for the land bank to fix it up within 6 months. If you don't fix it up, they can take the house back. If you don't go extend the time that they allow you to. And that's a conflict because the land bank got homes in the land bank for years that they ain't fixed up. So to require the residents that buy those homes only 6 months to fix up a property that takes $30,000 or $50,000 worth of work to fix up, I think it's totally unreasonable. So we have numerous complaints about them, from racial discrimination. They feeling like they're African Americans is not being able to buy certain properties in certain neighborhoods. So between the land bank and the drainage fees, that's the two top issues that is going to dominate our whole process until something gets done.
Okay, it'll be an interesting legal issue with the water because that was actually set up through court order through the bankruptcy and interacts with what they call the Great Lakes Water Authority, which is for the whole region, and is going to be interesting how that's going to be sifted through. It's probably ripe for legal challenges once whatever you end up, if you end up putting any, when I say restrictions or different outcomes on it, I am guessing there'll be challenges in court about it. So it's going to be an interesting road.
Commissioner Underwood, how you doing?
Yes, how are you?
I'm great. This is Commissioner Willie Burton. I just want to say I really enjoyed you all's meeting yesterday, and I love how you were so passionate, and you took the time to, listen to people's concerns as they brought them forward. One of the questions I have for you is, what kind of support are you all receiving over there on the Charter Commission, and how can we help you all?
Well, surprisingly, to a lot
and
of
congratulations too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Burton. Yeah, we're receiving a lot of community support. I mean, and I believe a fair amount of law commissioners have their own support from the community, but we get a lot of community support and a lot of community engagement, and that's what's going to make this process go easier, and we're going to have a successful process because the people will feel engaged, and so we'll be able to produce a charter that will resonate with the people, that they will be able to vote on, and we'll be on time as far as making sure we have the charter delivered to the Attorney General on time. And I just will ask the community continue to support us and come out to all the meetings, and so we can just feed off of you guys' energy and make sure we're doing the right things, and you have to hold us accountable in every step that we do in that process. And so that's the main thing. As far as the city's support, they limited on what they can do outside of securing the funding for us to operate.
Okay. Well, we got to get the break. If you want to hold on and okay.
Yeah, I'm tired. I did it for Scotty. I got up early for him, and I thank you guys.
Thank you.
Right,
we appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, if the rest of our call, if you can hold on through the break, we're going to go to break right now, and then take your call right after. Thank you. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation.
The day you lose your strength is the day you lose your independence. Muscle is lost with age, affecting your energy, balance, and mobility. Before you know it, you're depending on others just to get through the day. But you can reverse and prevent muscle loss. Introducing MyoHealth, a revolutionary proven approach to increased muscle strength and function in as little as 30 days. Live life on your terms with more energy and confidence.
After a serious health issue put me down, MyoHealth's getting me back up again.
I'm doing activities that I haven't done for a long time. It really works.
MyoHealth is a safe, natural dietary supplement, the result of decades of research and 24 human clinical studies. You can live stronger at any age with greater strength, mobility, balance, and energy. Call or go online now and take the MyoHealth 30-Day Strength Challenge.
40 million. That's the number of free phones still available and the number of how many Americans can still get prescriptions free.
Free could be wonderful. That's why I'm still working at 77 years old to pay off my prescriptions.
I needed to have a prescription filled, and I had to leave because I couldn't afford it.
Call now and see what's available for you. Free prescriptions. Over 10 million people get prescriptions free, and the program has expanded, so another 40 million can. Free dental. Over 15,000 dentists have provided over $330 million in free dental work, free cell phones. 40 million free cell phones are still available with free minutes and more.
Free cell phone would change my life right now because it is something I cannot afford to get.
Medical supplies like back braces, knee braces, and diabetic supplies may be covered too. The free RX Plus hotline has saved callers over $12 million on their prescription costs. These free programs are now available to 40 million more people. Call now.
Good morning. You're listening to 910 AM, the Superstation. And my name is Robert Ficano, here the host at 910. We have several people in the studio. But before we get to them, back to them, Leonard's been holding a long time, so we want to get to your call. Leonard?
Yes, I had problems with the land bank and the companies that they work with. They basically asked me to give a price for, place was auctioned off, so I gave it to them, and I waited, and they said that I had won the auction, and I waited, and a few days later I called back, and then they told me that I didn't have anything, okay? And the place is getting, somebody else has it now, and I asked them for another house that I could, bid on and stuff, and they're telling me no, but I think they're going to see me down at their offices or at the mayor's office. Because
now, Leonard, were you outbid? Is that what happened on the first house? Do you know?
No, I wasn't outbid it. I gave the highest bid, which was little nothing, and the officer or representative said that I had it. So I waited, for a call. And,
did you submit the bid? Did you submit the bid online?
I called back myself, and they told me I didn't have it. After they had told me that I did have it, I don't play games like that, and I don't know why people in Detroit are letting them play games like that, but I will be down there.
Leonard, did you submit the bid online, or how did you facilitate the bid?
It was up by phone.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so phone. Which makes it. I'm not sure. See, I'm not sure what the actual procedure is. Probably locking in by written correspondence probably makes it more difficult if they're going to change their mind concerning it.
No. They're going to do right. I'm the one that helped close down DRACO, okay? I'm a troublemaker from way back. It's like,
okay.
Nah. Mm-mm.
Okay.
They're not going to change the rules on me. I know that the only fair around here is the state fair. Okay, nothing's fair.
Okay.
Did you happen to find out like who did get the property? Because I mean, there's been people that I know were bringing up at the meeting yesterday at, during citizen comments about there being preferential treatment for certain people, and basically them finding ways to get land from other people.
Yeah, I saw the people in there, but the thing was this other lady had bought a property next to this, and she was the one that gave me the number to the land bank and the particular person there, because she had purchased the house right next to that one. They've gone in the area so tough that they even told this one lady that they were going to take her garage because she didn't pay taxes on the garage. Okay? It's been real nasty out here.
What part of the city is this happening in right now where you're at?
This is in the north end.
Okay. I've heard about that. And actually, North End's had a problem with
They'll hear about me in a little while because, the lady doesn't know who her friend is and all that kind of stuff. But I've looked and been around people from way back when. Started the Young Democrats years ago, the whole bit, So see what happens.
All right. All right. Well, good luck to you, Leonard, and I hope you get it straightened out and the way it's being set up.
Keep fighting, man. Keep fighting.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling. 1-1, you're on with Bob Ficano and Keith and Commissioner Willie Burton. Yes.
How's everybody?
I'm Keith today, y'all.
We're just switching names back and forth there.
Tomorrow I'll be Bill.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Juan.
I just wanted to speak on the property at the Detroit Property Authority / Land Bank. The way it's structured, you can't owe taxes within. I'm just going to highlight something. You can't owe back taxes within 3 years. How much of a percentage of that is excluding Detroiters that lost, that are now in a position to gain? So as I look at the outline, it simply states you have to be an outsider to assume this property, plain and simple, because I know the ratio, looking at the foreclosure rate in this city over the past few years, those are not stipulations for current Detroiters, long-term Detroiters. And that's kind of like discriminatory to me, and it's an issue that's always blown off, and it's a private entity, which the mayor appoints people. It should be something that it has devastated this area. I know that because I see a lot of these investors. They're not holding up their end with the land bank. If you go down the stipulation in regards, you have to have it completed, permits, et cetera, et cetera. So how do they get the pass? I don't see them in Livonia parking all the wrong way up the street, dumpsters out there 60 days and, things of that nature. So why do we always get I'm talking from a long-time 40-something year Detroiter. How is it that we bear with this, the darkness and the blight and everything, no policing and no paramedics, and then we get written out of it? That's the big thing there. And I don't think we're going to walk too easy. They're trying to wait on us to die off or something. I don't know. But some judge or something got to step up to this because this is inhumane, amongst other things.
The one thing you can do, you're saying that if you've had a delinquency in the past 3 years that you can't bid on the land. I'm presuming that's in the ordinance. You can go to city council and they can change that ordinance. If you feel that it should be different than what it is, at that point.
It discriminates. If you look at the outline of what it takes to bid on a house, it doesn't. It really doesn't. The percentage of what long-term residents have went through in a bankrupted city, and then you outline it where you can't owe property taxes. Come on now. Our city, all these people are turning their backs to some real devastating things, and these gypsy investors, they're not holding up to their end of the deal, and the market's about to go. It's going down. So, what you get the residue. You see what I'm saying? Well, it's
yeah. The issue in Detroit is the have and have-nots that have the availability of resources with it, and so a lot of it is a lot of people feel that there's a lot of attention to downtown and not enough to the community outside of downtown in Detroit, and this is a constant buzz that you hear from people that they feel that there's an unfairness about it. But go ahead.
The two biggest landlords, the Detroit Land Bank Property Authority, then you have Dan Gilbert. Okay, you got possession of all this raggedy, blighted property. what good did that do us? You understand what I'm saying? I don't think it's just no blasé conversation. You know, as they gain write-offs and get credited and et cetera, we slipping into the grave, man. Yeah. Y'all don't see this as the population decline? Some of them people died. Some of them people ran down south just to go get a mop bucket to clean up somewhere for a job. And here we go with Jim doing the same doggone thing again. Same thing they told them people over there in Hamtramck at the Axle place. Nobody want to buy trucks no more. Now they saying don't nobody. I mean, do the city have a plan for these people exit? We've been down this road so many times and nobody's stepping up talking about come invest your money if you get a buyout over here into your own community in your own city or nothing like that. They point you to 75 freeway until you get up out of here. You know, so I'm not ashamed to say it. All this is criminal. I'm talking about, brother. Okay. You know the scope, but we'll see though. We'll see as they milk more.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in. I hope you have a better Sunday. You take care. All right. All right. Jackie, you're on with the panel.
Good morning. I'm enjoying your program. What I see the problem as being is the lack of civil attorneys for regular working people. If you try to ask or you try to litigate the problems that are happening in Detroit, especially to long-term residents, there are no civil attorneys that will take these cases that are actually discriminatory and should be against the law.
You talking about the land bank and the water? Or?
The land bank, the water, the garbage, all of these things that are happening to long-term residents are actually forcing people out of their homes with this, you can't buy any property if you're 3 years past due on your property taxes, or all of these little things that keep people from advancing because they don't want the long-term residents to advance.
Jackie, there are some centers you might approach, Wayne County Legal Aid Services sometimes.
Please stop.
Okay.
None of these agencies
have
will
they been approached?
Even talk to you. Yes.
Okay. Have you approached any of the law schools? Because sometimes some of the professors will take on these type of projects, and they have the students that have the research ability to look at it.
Let me just say this. No. And I can tell you from experience that the law schools, the attorneys, I've even had ask an attorney, will you write me a letter and say that you will not accept this case because you can't make any more than $5,000 or something that's written into some bill. Until some of the attorneys step up, the civil attorneys, they say that it's too much work. Most of the attorneys have things with the city of Detroit, jobs with the city of Detroit. So it would be a conflict of interest. And until we have attorneys that will look into all of these things that are happening to long-term residents, nothing will happen. We'll all run around in circles talking about what we're going to do when they just change the rules at random. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Otis, you're on with the panel? Otis?
Yeah, hello. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Good show. I agree with the lady who just hung up. She's right. We don't have civil attorneys to help the blue collar, low income on all the issues that affect them on property loss for a country that property was like the #1 issue when this country was created. Is now seeing like property ownership is whoever can take it from you, take it. And with Land Bank, I don't understand is that in African Town here, we're in this battle with them. They have taken beautiful homes in African Town, and they've said we've taken pictures when they have now take the homes, and then 5 years later, the homes have deteriorated, and the homes never come on the market for bid, And then when it do, a home that may have taken good painting and a clean up around the yard is now got to replace windows and doors and walls.
Now, Otis, when you say they take them because of foreclosure and taxes?
They take them for foreclosure on tax. Well, land bank don't take them for foreclosure on tax.
Yeah, they end up with the treasurer in the city.
Yeah. Land bank.
Yeah, and then they give them to the land bank.
And they're beautiful. And then all of a sudden we got these eyesores. I took pictures from, where a lot they had and a house 3 years ago. I had taken the pictures before. We take pictures in our community here in African Town as we look to work on projects. And so I took it to the land bank. I said, look down the street, all the way down, beautiful lawns, well-kept homes, across the street, the other side down the street. And you got these tall weeds and trees growing in the front of the house.
Now, have you approached, Otis, have you approached the city council person that represents that area and say...
Now we're putting together a whole packet with a PowerPoint to show them and pictures that we have and see if the community have pictures of vacant houses right after land bank, right when land bank took them. Because those houses have been worth, even though the market had crashed, the houses have been worth maybe $15,000. We're in beautiful condition. And land bank would not allow the community to buy them. Another thing is starting to happen now as we're doing research in this community through our nonprofit Citizens with Challenges here in African Town, is that land bank in the city of Detroit is flipping those properties between each other. The city gives the property to the land.
Go ahead.
For example, the city gives the property to the land bank. A homeowner wants to bid on the vacant property. At one time, the city was sending out letters flyers that you can buy the vacant lot next to you. So when a citizen, homeowner, taxes paid, put in a request to buy the lot next to them, as someone said, it seemed like things starting to freeze, that the transaction don't happen, even though they give you pretty much verbal, not written, verbal, that you are eligible for it. The next time you go get it from the city, it's at a land bank. So you try to find out when the land bank now got to put it out for a bid. It's not the lot next to you anymore when it's land bank. They put it out for bid. Okay, so you're waiting for it to come up for bid 2-3 years later.
Otis, one of the things, and being a lawyer, one of the things you should always do, orally, it works if people keep their word, but what you should do is somehow get a written correspondence that they're selling you the vacant lot next to you.
That's more simple for those who have knowledge, because I don't take nothing that's not in writing, because that's a fact. That's me. But you know, a lot of people out here have lived longer, have third-grade education, did very well in the factory, made good money, homes paid for, and some of them have been transferred to their children who live in the factory. So they based it on trust. And a lot of times we say things, especially for us, like I'm working on my 5th college degree, and me and my children, my family know. We have lawyers in our family. You do not take the word. But you have a large number of African Americans, and especially seniors or baby boomers, who have trust and think they're going to get it. Then what happens when it doesn't go up for bid, all of a sudden it becomes a city of Detroit property again. And so then it's like asking the question, even if it's land bank and you have to cut the grass 4 times a year, maybe it snows a couple of times, say at $25, that's $150. You sit on it 5 years, who's paying for that in land bank? When you sell those lots for $100, who's paying for it? If the city's taxpayer coming out of their fund, out of the general fund, covering land bank's costs, where those land bank properties given by the city is supposed to cover the cost of land bank. Are there some additional dollars from the general fund, our taxpayers, paying for land bank, and so they can play this game? And I want to say one more thing about the drainage fee. The drainage fee, if it's supposed to be, I heard you say regional, the Great Lakes Authority, because now people don't realize there's 2 authorities. It's Mike Duggan in Detroit, and it's Great Lakes. I went to a meeting when I was in 2015, taking a class at Wayne State, and the professor said if you go over to University of Michigan Dearborn and write a 1-page paper, you'll get extra credit. Well, I live near there, and I got a a couple of degrees from Henry Ford also. And so I went over there that evening and got a better understanding about the Great Lakes Authority and the Detroit controlling. So if this drainage fee, is it only tied to Detroit, or it's tied to everyone whose water runoff goes into the water sewage facility? Or is Detroit now, again, like putting roads out in the 40s and the 50s, putting sewer lines at the expense of Detroit taxpayer residents, paying for those suburbs? And are we now paying for the suburbs that when their water runoff that, into the sewer that runs into the sewer city of Detroit? Seems like that's some type of, as the lady said, we need civil lawyers. Where's Ernie Goodman? Rest his soul. Yeah. Ernie Goodman, when he took a case from me as a student at Wayne State, where are those type of lawyers now?
You raise a lot of good points, Otis. We have a number of callers on it, so I appreciate you calling in and listening.
You know, Bob, I think in the upcoming weeks or something, it'd be nice if we can hear from somebody from Land Bank, you know, to report out
how it works. Yeah, that'd probably be a great idea to set it up. Sure.
Yeah, I think
work on that.
Also, I noticed the caller brought up, an important issue that it seems like, the ability of people to hold on to property, which in a way is a significant step out of poverty and into, the middle class, being able to have something that's your own to get some independence is really threatened by a lot of this, because I've heard of cases also where blight has been used as a reason to take property from people where all their taxes are paid, but maybe they can't afford certain repairs, so some things look a little bit, not quite fixed up, and they end up having property taken from them, and then some investors end up getting a hold of it later on. And then there's and the problem is people with means, they have a way to litigate this stuff. They can afford to hire attorneys and accountants and all that to take care of a lot of these issues.
Challenges.
But yeah, and challenge it. But a lot of the common people can't. And also, like, for instance, another case where it comes up is the whole thing with civil asset forfeiture, where the property is seized, and a lot of times people aren't, the owner is not the person who is committing a crime, or a person is exonerated of a crime, but in order to get the property back, it's kind of like they have to be in jeopardy again. They end up having to hire a lawyer to get it back instead of it being automatic.
They got legislation that they're starting to pass to try to remedy some of that. Yeah, Sharon, you're on with the panel.
Oh yes, good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
I want to also state, a lot of people need help when it comes to repairs of houses. Mm-hmm. They move into a house and they can take care of the tax or whatever, take care of everything. But then if a couple years or 5 years later, the roof need replacing, or they have electrical problems and they can't repair anything. They need a water heater or a furnace, and that's a big problem too. People need more help on those repairs too for these houses they own.
Yeah.
That was my comment. That's why I never even thought about buying a house. My father and my grandma never even thought about it either, because when it comes to repairs, everything go. They're a lot of trouble.
All right, thanks, Sharon. We appreciate calling in. Have a great Sunday.
Well, and there's one thing too. I just wanted to throw in, because the commissioner previously had mentioned that 6-month timeline. You buy something from the land bank, you've got 6 months to get it fixed. In order to do these repairs, like a roof or anything major like that, you've got to get approval on your building plans from BC at the city, and they might not get that done for months before you can even start construction. So that's another disincentive for people to actually buy from the Land Bank Authority.
Good point. Yeah, they can take a long time with the inspectors and get the certificates and things, the building permits that you actually need in order to do it.
So even if you have the taxes paid and you have the money to do the repairs, but you don't get the repairs done because the city's blocking you from doing the very repairs that require.
Although I would think you'd be able to ask for the extension showing that the inspections didn't occur in a timely manner, you'd think. So, Marilyn, you're on with the panel here.
Good morning. Problem that I have, it's great they cut the grass, the lots, on the street. But they're not cutting down the trees that grow on the side of the land bank. And the trees are growing over into your yard. And I had to pay somebody to come $300 worth of work to cut their trees down that's growing over into the yard, about to touch the electrical wire from the pole in the alley. Then you got a lot of, I don't know who.
DTE DE is supposed to actually cut that if it's interfering with any of the lines that
no, I was
go
saying
into the
along
community.
the fence part.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So, and then it grows back up, and then you got to get it cut again. But the main thing is from the alleys, those trees that grow up. They're saying that the people are supposed to cut them. I'm like, we did not ask for these alleys to be closed. So somebody should take responsibility and come through and cut those trees down. They shouldn't have even gotten that tall anyway if they had been on it. And then it wouldn't be interfering with the phone lines, the electrical lines. A friend of mine almost lost her house because one of those trees fell, hit the line, and hit the house. Yeah.
You raise a good point. So if there is, so they close the alley and the trees have obviously kept growing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a lot of senior citizens, and they're talking about, I say, we don't even hardly have the money to eat.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Marilyn. We appreciate it. Jesse, you're on with the panel.
Yeah, this is Jesse from Afro-American Town. My concern is the charter commissioner member still there?
No, she
Underwood?
isn't. No.
She's not?
No, I'm sorry,
mine is
Jesse.
for her, and we need something in the charter about when is a person, when they put the handcuffs on you according to the OJ trial, you are under arrest. Okay?
Yes.
And I'm sure she's still listening, and that's what we need to go over that, because right now, the Detroit police, once they put you in handcuffs for whatever, and then let you go if everything is in order. So as a former sheriff, I know you're on top of that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead, Willie.
But one of the things that the Border Police Commissioners approved was for our officers to wear body-worn cameras, and so when we see that and citizens report out on that, to the Border Police Commissioner's office, we take that very seriously, and but we need, in order for our office to act on it, we need citizens to report out on it. So, for those that experiencing that, we'd like for you to call 313-596-1830.
That's for the police commission.
The Border Police Commissioners. And one of our investigators will look right into looking into the findings of what actually went on. So, we do have oversight, in place to catch, activities like
some
that.
Of that.
Yeah,
all right,
some of that. Yep.
Steve, you're on with the panel here.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How about you?
All right. Let's all be men. We're talking about the same thing that the Detroit natives have been talking about for years. How long are we going to keep talking about it? We all know Detroit is just a walking lawsuit. It's ripe for litigation. Or all the citizens, from the garbage fee, from the water to the land bank. I had a house next, and I live in a quote-unquote good neighborhood. And I had a house that was controlled by the banks. But I cut the grass. I shoveled the snow. And every time they stole the garage door, the air conditioning unit, I had to protect it. And I took pictures of the cars that were still in, and I called the police. And you know what the lady told me? What does that mean? I said, I've got a picture of the license plate. The bottom line is Detroit suffers from a severe case of the broken windows theory. We never address things when they're small. See, what we're waiting for is the people to uprise once again. And that's where it's going to, gentlemen, because you can't keep working every single day. Some people are working 2 jobs and can't get ahead. The fact is, where in the country, other than Detroit, can you buy a car but can't afford the insurance?
Yeah, we have the highest insurance rate in the nation.
Yes, and guess what, Bob? We have not suffered from any natural disasters. We don't have mudslides, landslides. We don't have a lot of car theft. We suffer from litigation, from bad policies and procedures, and no one fighting on behalf of the citizens. You look at the fact is a bungalow, and I want you to, you got relatives, I want you to ask your relatives who live in better neighborhoods outside of Michigan, and you look at a bungalow on the east side or west side of Detroit, look at their homeowners insurance fees. It's absolutely ridiculous. Look at the flood of August of 2014. How many basements were flooded? And you got people who still not getting any money to repair their basement. But yet their homeowners insurance went up if they filed a claim. But when we came down to it, the whole result was the fact of lack of maintenance of the drains. How is it that you own the water, but you're the only people paying stormwater fees? How is that? And you're going to tell me there's no lawsuit there? Gentlemen, this is just common sense. If anything, if we own the water, that means all of our customers outside of Detroit pay the fee. GM doesn't charge their executives more for a car than they charge their customers. It's got to stop, gentlemen. We got to stop talking about it. And you guys in there are the smart people. You guys have backgrounds in the community. Some of you have law backgrounds, and you know as well as I'm saying it. A lot of these calls have made sense. They may have said it as eloquent to go into the Detroit Economic Club, but you read between the lines. And I'm telling you, gentlemen, right now in 2019. Only thing missing from a 1967 riot is a raid on the blind pig. That's the conditions we live in. The fact is a lot of people are distracted because we watch TV 24 hours. We got Netflix. We got cell phones. We got everything distracting you from your conditions, your economic conditions. Detroit economic conditions are dire. When you got 47% poverty, 47%
yeah, we have one of the highest poverty rates in the city of Detroit in the nation.
And Bob, it doesn't happen by osmosis. It doesn't happen because of natural disasters. It happens because of emergency managers. It happened because of policies and procedures. It happens because we got bums in office being politics. We got bums being clergy. You know, Martin Luther King will come. These Negroes in this town signify every January for Martin Luther King, but none of them are walking in the shoes of Martin Luther King. None of them. I won't say no, very little of them. Not enough of them. And Martin Luther King wouldn't even recognize. And I say, go ahead.
You're breaking up, Steve. Go ahead.
Poverty is real, here in America.
Oh, absolutely.
And and we hear Detroiters, mentioning every day.
Willie Burton, don't talk about America. See, that's another distraction. I don't want to care about, I'm talking about Detroit.
Oh, I said America, and then I said America, but I was bringing it home to Detroit.
But America is too broad. I want you to put the spotlight. Don't put it under the sunlight.
Okay. We gonna go Detroit. We gonna go Detroit. Okay, Detroit love. Okay. So we understand poverty is real here in the city of Detroit. You got poverty, you got childhood poverty, you got working poverty. We hear the frustrations from Detroiters every single day. We understand when you look out the comfort of your living room, you don't see the beautifications and the transformation as you see downtown. You don't see all of the greenery and, the flowers planting and things of that nature. And right now you don't see the snow plowed or on side streets. So we understand the conditions in the city of Detroit, but we also believe that we see the problem, but the solution lies within the city of Detroit as well. So I think we are also part of not only the problem, but we also the solution. And then also, I just want to say, I hear a lot of people want to know what numbers to dial to report out on different things. So I just want to throw out there, for non-emergencies, the Detroit Police Department have a non-emergency number. I just want to throw that out there and make it really clear. And that's because every call is not a 911 call. And, so I just want to throw that out there is 313-247-4600 non-emergency. A lot of times you're hearing broken. You might hear somebody broke into somebody's house. That's happening every day in poverty, right? In impoverished communities, also working communities.
But Commissioner Willie, you know why people use 911 and you know why people use emergency rooms for primary care? Because nobody's listening. Because we go from town hall to town hall, fire to fire, and no one's listening. That's why people figure, if I just call 911, maybe I'll get some direct attention. They go down to the city council meeting. They got whatever's a big issue of the city council meeting, they have the city council meeting in the small room, not the big room, so they make it uncomfortable. But then you got to pay. Wait a minute. You pay $50 to park on a weekend to go to a play. But then when you come back to work, it's back to $10. But the ordinance say that parking has to stay at $50 for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like Detroit is ripe. It's ripe for litigation. And I'm telling you, on behalf of the commercial people, they're suing the water. And the gentleman that's suing but we don't have anybody suing on behalf of the citizens.
Well, we go hard on the Robert Ficano show every Sunday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Okay, Steve, thanks for calling. I know we got to wrap it up here.
And if you can't get through 911, you can always call us at 778-7600.
We're going to listen. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming today. And we have the four of us here, but we're all run by Maxine that does a great job here. You got four guys, and you have the one woman that knows what she's doing.
Maxine.
We appreciate it very much.
Appreciate you, Maxine.
Thanks, everybody, for coming on. We appreciate it very, very much for being a guest here today. And to all of you, you have a great week. You're listening 910 a.m. the Superstation, and we'll be back with you next Sunday from 8 to 10.
Hey, me and Bob about to arm wrestle, y'all. He just beat me.
See, when it feels like the sun ain't shining bright enough, it's like the devil's finding work to give an idol up. And though I'm blessed, I still got to handle the things I go through.
40 million. That's the number of free phones still available and the number of how many Americans can still get prescriptions free.
Free could be wonderful. That's why I'm still working at 77 years old to pay off my prescriptions.
I needed to have a prescription filled, and I had to leave because I couldn't afford it.
Call now and see what's available for you. Free prescriptions. Over 10 million people get prescriptions free, and the program has expanded, so another 40 million can. Free dental. Over 15,000 dentists have provided over $330 million in free dental work. Free cell phones. 40 million free cell phones are still available with free